Hey, my friend, it is so very wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jedley, and this is Reading with Your Kids Rewind, moments worth resharing from the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Today we're taking a look back at some of the great moments where we celebrated women in STEM and talked to authors about the ways that we can inspire our young girls to explore the STEM fields and our young boys, but especially our young girls. Today we'll be taking a listen back to some great moments we shared with Laurie Wallmark, with the Space Gal Emily Calandrelli, with Carmela Dutra. But first, we're going to return to an episode that was first published on June 13th, 2017, one of our very first episodes of the show. We were speaking with Susie Olsen, and the name of the show was Inspiring Young Girls to Love STEM. Here's Susie Olsen. Susie, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited.
I'm excited to have you here, too, because you're Annie Aardvark, mathematician. It's addressing something that is so important these days. It's motivating kids to love math and to love that thing we call STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics.
It is. That is the main reason why I wrote Annie Aardvark Mathematician, was to get interest from kids into math and science, technology, engineering, and math or STEM, and especially to girls and minorities. Being an engineer myself, a female engineer, minorities and females are really underrepresented in engineering, and I would just love to see more females and more minorities in my profession. So as well as if people have a love and an interest in STEM, they should do it.
Yeah, absolutely. To give you an idea, if you're not in the science and technology field, to give you an idea of how few women are in the field, my daughter's boyfriend is a student at a leading engineering college here in Boston. It's not the big one, not MIT, but it's probably the second or third. I'm not quite sure where they rank, but it's a very respected institution. And in his graduating class, there are 2 women.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's not because they're not allowed. They welcome there and they're recruiting women, but it's. What do you think? What do you think it is that has created this lack of women in the science, technology, and engineering fields?
Yes. So I'm very involved with an organization called the Society of Women Engineers, and they've partnered with various groups to do studies on these specific issues of, why aren't women entering the field of STEM, or why are they leaving? And I believe some of the research that they've done, that they showed that girls are just as capable as boys in STEM subjects, but somewhere in middle school, they kind of lose confidence in their abilities. Where I can't remember this. I wish I remembered the name of the study. I apologize.
Nice.
But they tested boys and girls on math, and if the boy didn't seem to do well, he would just go and study and try harder and try again. Where the girl, even though she had been getting A's and just like the boy, if she did bad on that same math test, she would just kind of give up. So I believe it was the CEO and founder of Girls Who Code, who talked about we need to teach. Her name is Remy. And she said we need to teach girls to not be afraid of failure, to be brave, and to know that it's okay to failure. So I think that's part of the issue. I don't know if that's the whole issue, but that's what I'm aware of. in terms of why maybe some, girls who had an interest originally and were good at it, eventually, maybe they just had one, failure, about one bad grade, and for some reason then they thought, okay, that's the end of that.
Yeah.
So, it might be, it's probably more complex than that. I mean, I know there's tons of other studies out there, so that's just the one that I can remember.
Well, you know,
stuck with me.
Well, I think it's important because I've heard a lot of things. It's bias and the girls aren't encouraged, and that's probably true. However, those are things that we can't kind of control. And, we can't expect our middle school daughters to go into school and say, hey, you're biased because of my gender. You're not giving me the chance I deserve. But we can teach our daughters to, hey, you had a bad grade. Not a big deal. We all have a bad day. Let's keep going. This is something you love. This is a passion. You can't give up on yourself. If you enjoyed our Listen Back with Susie Olsen, you want to listen to the entire episode. It's called Inspiring Young Girls to Love STEM. It was one of our very first episodes. It was published on June 13th, 2017. And you can find that episode on our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Right now, we're going to take a listen back to another episode that was first published in 2017, September 9th. 2017 to be specific. It was our conversation with Carmela Dutra. She wrote a beautiful book called Little Katie Goes to the Moon. Here's Carmela Dutra. But we're here today talking about Little Katie Goes to the Moon. So tell us about this. It's exciting that this idea of a young girl and getting girls and kids interested in space travel. This is wonderful.
Oh yeah, it's no secret that women and minorities in general are underrepresented in the STEM and STEAM fields. So I really wanted a book that would inspire girls, because I remember when I was growing up, there weren't a ton of books out there where the girl was the main character. There might be girls in the books, but they weren't the main one for me to identify with. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I remember loving all those other books too. But I just wanted something that would really appeal to girls and would appeal and work well in the classroom. So one day I just happened to be looking at pictures online, and I saw a picture of a little girl that said, "Reach for the stars," and everything just took off. I started thinking about a little girl in her rocket ship, and she was going to travel to the moon. She was going to learn all kinds of moon facts, and I wanted to find a way to take a fun adventure and put a spin on it where you could also learn something without feeling like you're having all of these facts just regurgitated at you. So I came up with Little Katie, and her best friend is her puppy Smudge, and they take all kinds of adventures together. This is just the first book in this series of the Little Katie series. So from here on out, it's going to be rebranded Exploring STEM with Little Katie, or Exploring STEAM rather, because I'm the illustrator too. So my editor just changed that. Okay. Exploring STEAM with Little Katie, and each book is going to teach the kids something in the STEAM field. So we have our science, and next one I'm working on is coding. So we're going to be touching into the technology side and introducing the basics to coding, getting kids interested in it from a young age.
Now you have to enlighten me. I'm familiar with what STEM stands for, but what's STEAM? What do those initials stand for?
So STEM is science, technology, engineering, mathematics. STEAM is the exact same thing, only they throw art into it. So science, technology, engineering, arts, mathematics.
Wonderful. Well, I am all in favor of that. Being in the arts myself, I would give two big thumbs up for that. I don't think we encourage our kids enough to really appreciate, and I think it's hard for parents too when they. I know it was hard for my parents when I said I was going to try to make a living as an education magician. They're like, "Oh no. He's going to be poor for the rest of his life. But I think it's because it's, we want our kids to be happy. We want our kids to be successful. And we, of course, want them to be able to put a roof over their head and to eat. But I think it's just as important for our kids to find something in their life that they feel passionate about and can help them really express themselves and express who they are. And all of these different fields, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and the arts, these are great ways for people to express themselves in very different ways.
Yeah, art is something that is very near and dear to my heart.
If you are interested in hearing our entire conversation with Carmela Dutra, please do go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the front page. There's a link there that says listen to the podcast. That will bring you to our podcast page, and you can use the search bar to search out Let's Go to the Moon, or search out the date September 9th, 2017. All of the episodes of Reading With Your Kids podcast can be found at readingwithyourkids.com. The program is also available at the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, GoodPod, Stitcher Radio, Himalaya, Ghana. You get the idea. We're available wherever podcasts can be found. Right now, it's time to share with you our very first conversation with the Space Gal, Emily Calandrelli. What a fascinating author, television personality she is. The name of the episode was A Chat with the Space Gal. It was first published on September 12th, 2018. Here is the Space Gal, Emily Calandrelli. Emily, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent. I mentioned that you're a TV star. You are executive producer of Exploration Out of Space on Fox, and you're also a correspondent on Bill Nye Saves the World. And now here you are on my little Reading with Your Kids podcast.
Moving up in the world.
Thank you very much. Well, I knew Emily had class because she went to school right here in across the river from my city. She went to school at MIT, and I'm in Boston. So I feel like we're neighbors at some point, anyways.
Oh, definitely. Oh, I'm a huge fan of Boston. Love living there.
Excellent. Well, we're buddies already. Tell us about Ada Lace and the Impossible Mission, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the fourth book in the Ada Lace Adventures, and the entire Ada Lace series is about this third grader, Ada Lace, who loves science and technology and builds her own robots and gadgets to solve mysteries that are happening in her life. Mm-hmm. And so this fourth book is just the next adventure in the series. And in this one, Ada and her friend Nina and her neighbor Milton developed this class project, and they're afraid, Ada and Nina are afraid that Milton has sabotaged it in some way because Milton is pretty devious in his ways, and so they kind of perform a mini heist in their school to try to retrieve their class project and see what Milton has done to it. And so it's very much like a mini heist that mm-hmm. Ada and Nina performed themselves with various gadgets that they have created and brought with them. It's a pretty fun series where kids who read them will go along with this mystery, go along with this adventure, and just learn about a little bit of science and tech along the way.
Excellent. I love books that spark the imagination and that really inspire kids to be curious.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what these are all about. I like to say that these books inspire accidental learning, where you don't realize that you are learning because you're just kind of enthralled with this fun adventure, this fun mystery, this fun book, and you don't realize that you're just learning a little bit about science and tech along the way.
Yeah. In some ways, I think that kind of accidental learning can sometimes be the best kind of learning.
Yeah, it really can. It definitely can, because that's the most natural way to learn about things, because in everyday life we
have to learn about various science and tech-related things. And it's just a natural part of life. Not all learning happens in a classroom through a textbook. And so by reading about these fun adventures, you can realize that curiosity is all around us. There's opportunities to learn all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things, I was just earlier listening to a podcast with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and someone that I know you've appeared with. And one of the things he said is that traditional schools kind of take away that kind of natural curiosity that we have, and it's more just sit down, learn this, spread it back to us, as opposed to teaching kids to kind of look at things and be curious and to explore different options.
Yeah, it's hard because I think that there's no right or wrong way to teach kids how to be curious, and this standard form of school probably works well for, the majority of kids. But there is this missing element of allowing kids to be naturally curious on their own, to work and imagine and think and innovate without, very hard structure that we have during school. And so it's a hard thing to create, and it's, we already ask a lot of teachers in this world. My brother's a high school teacher, so I kind of have a grip on how much we ask of teachers today. And so it's hard to, ask more of them for not just to do the strict things that we need to teach, like Common Core and all of the various things that kids need to learn along the way, but then to be like, well, you should also allow them to be curious without the structure and do all these additional things. So I get what he's saying there, and it's an important point, but, not all teachers, not all areas can facilitate that.
Now, I'm curious, what drove you to start writing books for kids?
Yeah, so my background's in science and engineering. I have 4 degrees in various science and engineering fields. And so when I was a kid, I loved reading adventure books. I loved reading mystery books. I loved sci-fi and fantasy and all that stuff, but there weren't a lot of stories where girls were the main character. I think of the stories that were impactful when I was a kid, and I think of things like Star Wars and Star Trek and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, and even cartoons like Rugrats and Pokemon and Hey Arnold, and all of these things that were really impactful for me as a kid and that were relevant in culture at the time. They were great, and I loved them, but all of the main characters were boys and men. And so I wanted to create a story that was about adventure, that had a little bit of science and tech, that had a main character that was a girl, a book that I wished that I had when I was a kid.
Once again, that chat with Emily Calandrelli was first published on September 12th, 2018, and it was called A Chat with the Space Gal. If you did love our chat with the Space Gal, then you absolutely want to subscribe to the Reading with Your Kids podcast on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audible, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you find your podcast. Emily came back to the show recently. She is also coming back to the show in March of 2022. We love having her on. Another guest that we love having on is Laurie Wallmark. This conversation with her was first published on January 22nd, 2019, and it was called Hedy Lamar's Double Life. Where do you think this prejudice came from?
Okay. I have sort of 3 reasons that kids are not embracing STEM. So this isn't even specifically just about the prejudice, but the prejudice is one of them. But it's a broader question, a prejudice against science and math. And the first one is just lack of access. Because if our poor schools can't have money to fix the roof, they're certainly not bringing in visiting scientists and being able to take field trips to science museums. So that's one of them. Another one is, of course, that prejudice, that we have this image in our mind of what a scientist looks like. Girls shouldn't be scientists. Underrepresented minorities shouldn't be scientists. And you're told that at such an early age that it becomes part of you, which is one of the reasons I write picture books, because I want to catch kids at that early age. Mm-hmm. But the third reason, and this one's just sad to me because I so love science and math, is lack of interest. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly okay not to be interested in science and math. People have different interests. But if that lack of interest is because they weren't exposed to the fun side, the creative side of science and math, if all they're doing are, I don't know, times tables and memorizing things, no one's going to go into science and math because that isn't fun. Mm-hmm. But it really is exciting. And I think we're doing a better job in the schools now with maker spaces and doing experiments to show kids and increase that interest that kids might have. Not all of them. Again, it's still okay to not like it after you've been properly exposed.
Now, I love the fact that you're introducing kids to these fields through picture books. Talk a little bit about the kind of how parents can use your picture books and the kind of conversations they can have that are supportive of sparking their kids' interest, whether they're girls or boys, in the STEM fields.
Well, one thing they can do is go to my website, and if you click on the Teachers tab, it's really Teachers/Parents, but there isn't room for the /Parents on the tab. And there are teacher guides for all the books. And these have activities that you can use that go along with the books. There's a STEM activity guide. I have word searches, math and computer word searches. So you can download any of these things. And the activities, some are more teacherly. They are teacher guides. But some really are just fun activities that you can do. The game of Guess Your Friend's Birthday is on there. So that's one thing you can do. But I think the biggest thing you can do is expose your children to a variety of people, the stories of a variety of people doing science. People who look like them, people who don't look like them, to show that it's for everyone.
Very, very, very important. And I love that you're including parents in that, encouraging parents to check out the teacher guides, because one thing that I always like to remind parents is that you are your child's first and most important teacher. And some people go, but what if they're not good teachers? And if they're not showing interest in their kids? I go, well, then they're still the most important teacher because they're teaching them something we don't want them to learn. But so if you're on an author's website and you see those teacher guides and you're a parent, click on that, because you are just as capable as a teacher of taking that information and sharing it with your kids and doing fun things that go beyond just the books. If you would like to listen to our entire conversation about the amazing Hedy Lamar, please do go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com, search Laurie's name, or search for that specific episode, Hedy Lamar's Double Life, published January 22nd, 2019. Also, Laurie's been on the show a number of times. She has some great nonfiction books, all featuring and celebrating women in STEM. She just published a fiction picture book called Dino's Pajama Party. It really is wonderful. You want to hear her talk about that book too. I want to thank all of our guests for being on the show today, providing with some great moments. Of course, we want to thank Laurie Wallmark. We want to thank Emily Calandrelli, the Space Gal, Susie Olsen, and Carmela Dutra. I want to give a special thanks to Michael Murphy for selecting our highlights. Also want to thank my team, Alejandra Doherty, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids Rewind.